You mentioned the whirlwind or tornado of musical knowledge that's always around you and those sort of places. I know in the other sciences, right, when people are doing sort of like research or trying to discover new things, are there like, is there an equivalent for that in music? Like, is there like new techniques that like people are trying out, or is it more sort of like, how does that sort of work in the like the musical knowledge or musical theory sort of realm of things? Like, is there, because obviously you would have to discover new things, but you don't think of people discovering music as like a normal thing, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
How does that sort of work?
Um, let's see. There's probably two sides of that coin.
Mm-hmm.
That one of them would be the performance side of it, and then the other one is probably education and teaching. And in a lot of ways, they overlap. Um, but I think in the performance side of it, there's always new music to be written that are going to require new techniques on an instrument that are going to create new sounds that people have never heard or combinations of sounds.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that is a moment of having a vast knowledge of what's happened, and then experimenting with what you can do, things that have never been done before by people that have never created that before. Um, and that can range from anything from a composition to I know there's a chamber ensemble from Michigan that they use clarinet, bassoon, saxophone, oboe, and bass clarinet, and that was like an arrangement of instruments that was not really considered a prominent thing in the field, and now is the new norm. It's kind of an interesting thing to change
Mm-hmm.
that world. On the ed side of it, I mean, especially at the teaching the high school level, there is just an absolute plethora of things you have to be aware of at any given time,
Yeah.
because you have your day-to-day band curriculum.
Mm-hmm.
You have all of the things that are outside of your world that are like pep bands, marching bands, that you're going to be working with athletic departments, and
Right.
you're going to have to know how their sport works
Mm-hmm.
and how, like, what the rules are for playing there. You're going to have to know, like, the business side of it, right? Like, if you are running a band budget and or a booster program, you're essentially running a small or not so small business, that you're going to have to look for your needs this year, as well as how to grow for 5 to 10 years,
Right.
as well as recruitment and people. And all of that is just the extra on top of what the district or school considers you to be doing your job well, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like, at the end of the day, most people are like, oh, did the band sound good? Yeah. Okay, cool. Right. Like, and
Yeah.
that's kind of their evaluation of how well you do your job. And that's
Mm-hmm.
really just a teeny tiny portion of what is actually entailed in the job, that really isn't on the job description, right?
Yeah,
That you
definitely
really
not.
kind of know either from your experience of training in college, or getting thrown off the deep end and just going, wow, there's a lot more.
Yeah.
uh, but yeah.
I feel like all the other stuff, the sort of the marching band and the booster program, sort of this depends on the school itself and how
Mhm.
good, like using football as the marquee normal example. For instance, if the school is not very good at football, then it probably you will have less to do, I would imagine, in that sort of department. Is that
Yeah.
something that you found?
Yeah, it's super dependent, and it's based on region and state, and, like you said, what the school's other strengths are.
Mm-hmm.
And some programs might not have a marching band, but they have 5 jazz bands, or vice versa, and maybe they have an amazing chamber ensemble program. And it really depends on what is available and what your goals are. So maybe they don't have a jazz band. Maybe you want to work with the community to build a jazz band. And I think that's also an important part, is not only forming relationships, but also forming that trust,
Mm-hmm.
with the community that you're involved in. That you are really there to help everyone.
Mm-hmm.
And it takes a little bit. And I was fortunate enough to land my current job that, I mean, we have all of those programs, and the kids are just so exceptional and hardworking that almost all of those programs are strong. You'll often hear directors say like, "Oh, we're a marching band school," or "Oh, we're a
Mhm.
jazz band school," and like we're fortunate enough to be all of them. And I also have coworkers. There's two other band directors that we lean on each other and work with that, and you know it's a lot of relationship forming and
Mhm.
understanding and being a little empathetic as well of what other things are, because there's a lot of times where you're like, well, I want this for my band program, and
Mhm.
that's just maybe not a possibility right now.
Yeah.
And so you have to both accept that moment and also think, okay, how can I make that happen?
Mhm.
And you know am I required to? No. But does it make a better education for kids? Hopefully, right?
Mhm.
Like that's the goal. Um, and so there's a lot that goes on outside of it, outside of the kind of 9 to 5 or eight
Yeah.
to five that kind of goes unseen. But
Mhm.
hopefully you've worked with the community enough that they're appreciative of.
Yeah.